Bob lives in a camper because it makes him feel like a man with options. It also makes him easy to haunt. The night Mara died, it rained like the sky was trying to erase her. Bob told everybody he was fine. Bob has never been fine. Weeks later, a night when the rain was loud enough to drown out common sense, something knocked. Not on the camper door, on the side panel. Like a fingernail, slow, patient, Bob sat up in bed, whispering into the dark. "Who's out there?" The rain answered with more rain. Then a sound, not a scream, a cry. Steady and broken. The kind of crying that makes you feel guilty even if you did nothing. Bob's stomach dropped. Because Bob doesn't hear danger. Bob hears somebody needs me. Bob grabbed his flashlight like it was courage. He stepped out barefoot because Bob has always met life the same way he meets love, unprepared and optimistic. The beam cut through the downpour, mud, puddles, trees, the path toward the high pass. Nothing. Then the cry again, closer. Bob swallowed and called out softly, "Mara?" He didn't mean to say her name. He said it because he always says her name when he's lonely. The crying stopped. The rain kept going. Then, right behind him, a wet exhale. Bob turned fast and the beam landed on her, not the Mara he remembered. Something older, hair soaked, hanging like weeds. A pale dress clinging to her like the rain owned her. Eyes dark, fixed on him like he was the only light left in the world. Bob whispered, "Mara!" She didn't answer like a person. She answered like a place, like the pass itself had learned how to speak. And when she finally spoke, it wasn't, "I missed you." It was, "Bob." Soft, exact, like she'd been saving his name for this moment. High above, the Rockies didn't move. They don't do drama. They do witnessing. They just watched like, here we go. Another man about to confuse terror with chemistry. Bob should have run, but Bob has always been built wrong for survival. He took one step toward her, and the temperature dropped so fast his breath turned visible. Bob smiled anyway, because if you've been lonely long enough, even a haunting feels like attention. Bob backed up toward the camper, flashlight shaking. Inside, he grabbed the teddy bear he keeps around, because Bob is Bob, like it was protection. The bear was huge, soft, and patient, which is to say, Bob. La Llorona looked at the bear, then looked at Bob, and Bob, trying to sound brave, said the stupidest thing a man can say to a ghost. "You're freezing. Do you want to come in?" The lights flickered. His phone died. His watch froze like time didn't want to be involved. And she stepped inside without touching the doorway. Bob stood there trembling, whispering, "I knew you'd come back." The Rockies, unimpressed, shifted a little. The Rockies, he thinks this is a reunion. This is weather. And he brought a stuffed animal to negotiate. After that night, Mara didn't stay. She popped in and out like a storm. Sometimes she'd appear in the mirror behind him while he brushed his teeth. Just standing there, soaking wet, silent. Bob would freeze, then whisper, "Hey, you're here." Sometimes she'd show up outside the camper in the rain and just watch him. Not needy, not warm, just present. And Bob would do what he always does, interpret presence as love. He started leaving the porch light on, keeping a towel by the door, buying flowers, and realizing flowers don't last long in a place where the air turns cold on command. Bob would talk to her like she was still his girlfriend, tell her about his day, tell her about his plans, tell her about how he was changing, and she would appear, linger, then vanish on her own schedule, which, let's be honest, is the only way Mara has ever been consistent. From the floor, Biscuit watched it all. He didn't bark, he didn't growl, he just stared at Bob like, "I have seen things I cannot unsee." Biscuit, "Bob, I'm a dog. I lick my own butt, and even I know you're not supposed to follow crying into the woods." He shook once like he needed to reset his whole nervous system. "And if she comes in here again, I want my own therapist. I want my own shower. I want my own apartment." The longer she haunted him, the bolder she got. When Bob tried to date again, the camper would turn cold. Candles would blow out. The radio would snap to static. One woman swore she heard crying from the bathroom. Bob laughed like, "Oh, ha, the pipes." The woman left. Bob stood there afterward, alone, thinking, she still chooses me. But it wasn't love, it was control, not romance, ownership. The Rockies stayed quiet for a while. Then, like old men at the end of a bar, they finally spoke. The Rockies, he calls it loyalty. We call it predictable. This man is getting haunted on a schedule. One night, Bob finally asked the question he'd been avoiding. Why do you keep coming back? The camper went silent. Even the rain seemed to pause, and her voice came from right behind his ear. Because you always answer. That's the curse, not the ghost, not the crying, not the high pass. The curse is Bob, a man so starved to be chosen he'll call a haunting a relationship, and keep the porch light on for it. High above, the Rockies didn't move. They just said, quiet, ancient, unimpressed. Son, you didn't rekindle nothing. You got haunted, and you called it love, and the wind carried it down the pass. So Bob couldn't say he wasn't warned.